Good morning, everybody. Glad to see so many people out here after the big reception yesterday. I hope everybody enjoyed the trip. And I'm Christoph. I joined Springer Nature 2 years ago. Before that, I was a researcher in neurosciences and health sciences. And I'm going to kick us off today. And then my colleagues Marianne and Dennis will join in for the discussion. So yeah, from experience, being a successful researcher is really challenging because there are so many skills you actually need to master. You need to be good at your experimental design to get the results that you can trust. You need to be able to do data analysis. You need to be able to publish or write a paper first, then get your paper published. And if you are a non-native English speaker like I am, you need to always be working on your English literacy all the time. And well, you need to do that in a very limited time because there are like a million tasks you need to do simultaneously. You need to conduct your research, as we just said. You need to be teaching. You need to be working on your career development because you're probably on a fixed-term contract, so you're always constantly looking for a new job. You need to secure grants, and again, you need to publish your findings. And all of that is usually happening with very limited support because all the other researchers in your network, they're also super busy. Your supervisor might not have the time to talk you through your experimental design, or your colleagues might not have the time to just give you some feedback on the manuscript you just drafted. And yeah, you probably don't have a lot of support from your department on that either. So what we suggest is that we team up as publisher and librarians to give the researchers help to develop the skills they need to be successful. And what we want to do with you all today is, first of all, share some data to know what the actual challenge is, show some solutions for that, and then have a good knowledge sharing discussion and see what is the role that librarians play today in continuous research and development, and yeah, just see where we go from there. So what we do to understand our audience of researchers a little bit better, we conduct annual surveys, and in those surveys we ask the researchers, so what are your challenges, what are the skills that you think are important to be successful, and what kind of training do you want to have? And what we're going to do during the next few slides, we are going to do some of those questions in a little bit more detail. So the first question we want to look at today is, we asked the researchers, more than 1,000 researchers in this case in the survey, what key professional skills and knowledge do you think you need to acquire to develop your career? And if you look at the results here, we see that, and we asked them to classify their answer in extremely important, moderately important, slightly important, and we see that scientific writing and publishing comes up, comes up with a 93% of the answers as extremely important. So we can still see from here that it's still super important for the researchers to be able to write a good paper and to get it published in a reputable journal. So just to increase their visibility within the scientific community. Run-up skills to that one were collaborations in research, were data analysis skills, and research ideation. And in a different survey, we phrased this question a little bit differently, and we asked what important skills do you need to be successful? And the results we got from that one are actually really interesting. So we asked them to classify how important a certain skill or a certain area would be, and the results are that 96% said that planning the research, as in the ideation, is super important to be successful. 84% then said that the actual implementation of that research idea is important as well. 86% said that, well, obviously you need money to do your research, so you should be able to write a good grant application. Data management and analysis, and also data visualization, super important. Here we come back again to what we were talking earlier. Scientific writing, 95% said that's crucial as a skill, you need to be successful. 82% communicating your findings to the general public, and 88% building a reputation. 90% said that networking skills are also important, and 88% identifying and participating within collaborations. So what we can see is here from basically, it's not just the hard skills skills, quote unquote, that you would need to conduct your research that are important to the researchers, but it's also things that might not be that obvious, like networking skills or building your reputation. What we can see from here is that to be successful, basically you need skills across the entire research cycle, everything. And what we ask next is, so we really want to understand how confident researchers are with skills, with these skills, with the important skills. Are they, do they know how to do all that, or would they benefit in training? And so we are looking again at the same skills and areas that we identified before, but the percentages we see now, it's, they show how interested researchers would be in training in those certain areas. And again, you're starting with planning, instrument design, 79% and 68%. Again, writing, getting enough money for your research, 76%. Data analysis, data management, 78%. Data visualization, 81%. Coming to the communicating to the academic community, writing a paper, again, we have 81% would be interested in training here. Communicating your findings in friendly public, 77%, same as within the presentation. Networking skills, we have 78 and 76%. And here, again, everybody wants training across the research cycle, but what we found really interesting here is actually, it's what we thought, is that researchers might want to have training in those skills and areas they're not super familiar with, like networking, all that stuff. But actually, they also want training in the skills that are like basic research, like how to do data analysis, how to plan your research and all that stuff. And that was, to us, as it became really a surprise. So the next question we asked is, if they want to have training, what kind of training, right? So is it a face-to-face situation they would prefer, like in what we have now today, or maybe even a webinar, or would it be on-demand training they would prefer? And so we sat down, or the company sat down, we started to do the questions. It's qualitative interviews, and we asked about the pros and cons in the different forms of training. And the answers are, if you sum it up, it's basically most of the researchers would opt for a face-to-face training situation, just because the simple fact that they have an expert in front of them that they can ask questions and get an answer from, and also like having the peer pressure helps with sticking to your training, not just dropping off. However, most of them, they caveated their choice by saying it's super hard to find time in my schedule to do the training, because I'm already super busy, I need to do all the experiments, I need to do all the writing. Where the hell do I find training time? So that the on-demand training advantage is I can do whatever I want. I can do it when I commute to work, I can do it between my experiments, whenever I have a little bit of time left. So this is basically what we can take away from this one is, if we offer training, that training needs to be extremely time efficient, because researchers are time poor. And the last question we want to look at today is, we asked, for which skills do you have training access? And we asked researchers, do you have training access, yes or no? Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied with the training you have? And the third option here in blue would be, yes, I have access, but I haven't used. And the green one here is, I have access and I'm satisfied with the training I have. So with this bar here, that is marks the 50% scale. So whenever red and black summed up together is more than 50%, that means that the researchers that answer this question either don't have access or are not satisfied with the training they have. Sorry again for the tiny font size, but I can leave it out to you. If we look at the classic we were talking about earlier, we have here communicate your findings, for instance, to the academic community. We see that we are almost at 50% here, so researchers don't have access, so almost 50% don't have access or are not satisfied with the training they have. Another one would be data analysis. More than 50% don't have access or not satisfied with the training they have. Getting funding, writing a grant application. More than 50% don't have access or are not satisfied with it. So basically, we can say that at least the researchers that answer this 762 researchers that answered this survey, they're clearly missing out on training. So bringing all this together from the data slides we just looked at is we have, if we want to help researchers build skills and close the skill gaps they have, we need to basically follow two principles. The first one would be that any solution or training we offer needs to be super time efficient, because A, they're super busy anyways, and so it needs to fit into the schedule, or it must help to free up time to actually conduct research or have more time to do other stuff. And B, whatever training we want to develop or the solution we want to develop, it needs to be tailored to the needs of the researchers, so it needs to help develop the actual skills they themselves identified as important. What we're going to do now is I'm going to briefly talk about the training solution we have, and then Marianne and Dennis are taking over to talk about their solutions for some of the problems. So what we have at Springer Nature, we are developing an online portfolio of e-learning courses, which is called Nature Masterclasses on Demand. And it's tailored to the specific needs of researchers. And there are a couple of reasons why it is so tailored. And the reason for that is that it's client-centric and data-driven, which means that basically the data we just looked at is just the first layer of surveys we do with researchers. After that, once we identified an important topic, we drill down even deeper to really understand where the problem is. And we also touch base with researchers during the development and ask, well, is this what you want to see? Is this not what you want to see? And to course correct if needed. It's done with researchers, so the courses we have are typically between 3 and 8 hours long, but they are broken down into bite-sized chunks, 10 to 30 minutes long, and they can be like dipped in and out. They can be done whenever researchers have time, again, on commute, between experiments, whenever. We have expert training, so we leverage the experience we have in-house from Nature Journal portfolio editors on a course such as scientific writing and publishing. That's obviously helpful. But we also have experts from academia and industry. And yes, practical training answers to the skills and needs we just identified. Just very briefly at the end, again, coming back to the research cycle and the different skills and areas we identified earlier. And the two courses we started out with in the development is scientific writing and publishing, because super important, and focus on peer review. The reason, again, super important, and it's the main expertise we have as a publisher. But now we have courses all across the research cycle, and you might already realize that some of them correspond really well to the skills and challenges we identified earlier. So basically, we can track whatever is needed.
All right, I'm up next. Hi, everyone. I'm Marianne Baines, and I'm with Overleaf. How many here are familiar with Overleaf? Do you know what it is? A good amount of you. That's great. So I will kind of get into that a little bit later, but I'm going to be, Overleaf is a collaborative online LaTeX editor. So it's a way for researchers, students, faculty to write, their documentation in LaTeX. LaTeX is typically used a lot in your hard sciences and your languages and things like that because it handles characters and equations really well. It was actually created in Stanford in the 70s to be able to handle some of the complex equations and formulas that were in engineering. So we're an online collaborative LaTeX editor. So I'm going to talk about collaboration and how the students and researchers are having to deal with that and how some of the librarians are handling it. So obviously, research by its very nature, as Christoph was saying, is a collaborative effort. And we're seeing the growth in collaboration. I don't think anybody's surprised by this, because it's historically collaborative, just as we said, it's in its very nature. But what we're seeing is the trend in the number of collaborators that are going on in research. So this goes through the end of 2021, so we don't have 2022 in here. But as we can see, it continues up and to the right on the number of collaborators that are actually working together on articles and research that gets published. So That's not too surprising, so it's something that we need to look at. And we at Overleaf, we actually took a look at a lot of the data that we had to see, because we are a collaborative LaTeX authoring tool, we wanted to see how are our users collaborating, and are we seeing a similar trend? And we actually were. What we were able to show is that we're even seeing a growth in not just the number of collaborators, but the number of collaborators in different countries. So this graph is just kind of showing how the various countries are collaborating together, and they're all kind of working together on various pieces of research, and we are seeing a big growth in that area as well. So not just the number, but also global collaboration versus just more localized. And then we went and I've pulled some information from one of our university partners from the University of Manchester, and we've actually done this for a few of our university partners. We pulled the data once they've actually put together or provided Overleaf to their student body or to the faculty or to the researchers, and we take a look at how that's affecting their external collaboration. And in every case that we've looked at, we see very similar stats, where they go from, you know, in this case, they went from 221, they went from a low number, 221 institutions that they were collaborating with externally to over 837, which was a 278% increase, which is amazing. And we're able to also show the different types of institutions as well as organizations. So, you know, obviously one of their big ones is CERN. The folks at University of Manchester is, you know, no big surprise there, I guess, that they're collaborating a lot with CERN on their research. And then you've got other universities, and then they can dive down and see other organizations that they're collaborating with. But every time we do this with one of our partners, we absolutely see that huge growth. When you offer the tools to allow them to be able to more easily collaborate, they absolutely take advantage of it, and we see that in the data, which is great. And then I wanted to kind of bring up, we worked with Helen Josephine, who used to be the head of the Terman Library at Stanford for many, many years. And she, you know, she discussed a lot how the librarian's role has been changing, which I'm sure you guys all know, and it's something we'd like to discuss with you all, is kind of how that's happening. But she was seeing that it was really important to be able to support collaboration, to be able to support the research in a different way than what had been traditional for her role. She feels like that providing that collaborative environment, providing the tools for the researchers, the faculties, the students, that was one of the most important roles that she saw for librarians on campus. And so she was also mentioning, as far as the collaborative tools, what was important when they took a look and at what was important to their student body and their faculty and their researchers, was that it was very easy. Again, that whole, it's got to be fast, it's got to be, you know, fit into the researchers what their time needs to be. But it has to be in the cloud, it has to be accessible anywhere. They wanted version control in their tools. They wanted to be able to allow for protected and private projects. Obviously, it's their research, they want to make sure it's protected. And they wanted to be able to integrate with other clouds, so with other tools and things like that. So that's some of the stuff that she had been seeing at Stanford. And again, we're going to be having an open discussion a little bit later, and I'd love to hear what you guys have been seeing as well. And I think that at this point, then I'm going to hand it over to Dennis.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Dennis O'Brien from Research Square. Thank you all for coming to our session this morning. It's great to see so many faces in the audience. I'm here to talk a little bit about how we help research communicate their work more effectively. I think going back to some of the research that Christoph showed us, 93% recognize that writing and publishing is a need. Obviously, we want them to be successful. We want to see them add to the academic record. We want them to be successful too. And from our research internally, we found that 10% of papers are rejected due to language alone. So science may be sound, science may be good, but it's not making it into the academic record because of language, and that's a shame. So a little bit about Research Square and AJE, where one of our main brands is American Journal Experts. You may know us by that. We were established in 2004, and Sashi's father, our founder's father, had a difficult time as a researcher because he wasn't able to get published because of some of the language problems he had. And Sashi founded the company to provide that kind of service for folks like his dad. So we're a team of scientists, researchers, language experts, software developers, publishing industry professionals, for a lot of folks who wear a lot of hats. And we help researchers communicate their work more effectively. Our goal is to accelerate the pace of global discovery and advancement. And the way we do that is by providing these language services that improve acceptance rates and reduce the amount of editorial time required on these pieces as well. So speeds up the publication process as well. And brings that good research to the market, to the academic record, faster. Do I just use the arrow here? Yeah. So a little bit about our solution. We provide professional service, which is human-based editing, but we also provide digital AI-based editing. Having 19 years of history doing professional editing has provided us with over 775,000 papers and counting that we have the before and after results to train our editing. I was in a session yesterday on technology trends that are affecting our industry. I don't know if anyone went to that one yesterday. But what was really interesting was AI came to the top of everybody's list. That's going to have a big impact. And two of the concerns I heard was, one, what is it trained on? And then two, does the author make the final decision, or is the machine making the decision? So I wanted to make sure I hit on those two things. So one, it's trained on these papers, these human-edited papers, right? It's got good data going into it. But maybe more importantly is that I've got a little sample of the output here. Because these are all suggested edits. At the end of the day, the author themselves makes the decision, do I like that change? Or don't I? Do I want to leave that? So I think we kind of hit on both of those concerns that I heard yesterday. So it is a purpose-built tool for a researcher, being based on these 775,000 papers. So going back to what Christoph said, we need to make sure that we provide something that is purpose-built, focused, and made for the researcher. And by doing this, we've saved thousands of hours. Editing, all this work going into your research, that last mile of all the editing and re-edits and requests for revisions from the editors, it's really difficult on the researcher, right? So we hope we make that process a little bit easier, saving them some time, and giving back to your institution, that they can have time to do more research or to teach their classes. And at the end of the day, we hope it improves their manuscripts before they submit them and helps them get into higher impact journals. So this is just a sample compared to a tool like Grammarly. Links to the actual studies are here. I assume they're going to provide you with PowerPoints so you're walking into digging deeper. But you can see, they get a very generic, hey, there's something going on here that you should probably approve. It's not really clear. Versus a paper that's been trained in that area of study by a PhD person with native English language skills, providing excellent suggestions that each and every one of them, they can make a decision on what they want to do. So I only had a few slides. I just wanted to introduce you to what we do and how we do it. I'm looking forward to some good discussion. And so with that, I'll invite you guys back up to join me, I guess.
Yeah.
Did we want to put these questions up?
Sure.
Sorry, I advanced the slides.
No, it's good.
Not
It's
asking
good.
permission.
We do have some questions that we thought we would like to ask to kind of start the discussion, but before we do that, does anybody have any questions just from any of the presentations? Yes.
Christoph.
Yeah.
So, regarding the training, you think it would also be helpful, and maybe it's not relevant, you're a researcher, you've done research, but do you think it would be helpful for research to understand the economics of research and understand the industry itself of scientific research? Maybe they can target better what they research, so it's
Yeah.
more marketable.
Yeah, of course. I think commercializing research itself
Want to repeat the
is.
questions? I'm not sure if they heard. You want to repeat the question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. No.
I think sort of Priya
Yeah.
asked that it would be interesting, if it would be interesting for researchers to actually also have training on how to commercialize research and how to get a better understanding of the industry around that. And I think that's a great idea, and it's important to understand that. And I know that there are many, many institutes out there that really want research to actually think about, if we specifically talk about like life science, biology and all that stuff, how to find commercial angle for their research, how that could be turned into money basically. So yeah, I think training on that would be really helpful. Are there any other questions?
I just want to throw 2 cents in there. There's a number of post-publication services that are out there too. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this, but a researcher can ask for social media help, or for someone to help them write a plain language abstract, or to do a video bite. That's one of our products. Sorry, same shameless self-promotion here. But there's many of those products that can help them get their science out there to a larger community. And I think we need to do a better job of training or making researchers aware that there's these tools available for them to push it out on their own.
And one question for you, if nobody else has any.
Yeah.
But I was curious, do you think it might be helpful for like, you know, people who speak another language, you know, that's their first language, to maybe first write their research in that native language? And then you have your team of translators, because maybe they, you know, they can focus just on their ideas.
That's an awesome question. And yes, so there's a number, we're not the only show in town, so there's other people that do what we do. We do it best. But we do provide professional language translation as well as editing. Now, the interesting part is we have trained the AI to translate and edit, so you get the same edit back in English, in Portuguese, from Portuguese to English, Spanish to English, as well as Chinese to English. So we're working on other languages. We're actually beta testing that with a number of our clients, but the results are very good. What I think is terrific about it is, because it's digital, it's a fairly low cost. So if you think about research that are under-resourced, you know, a digital solution is something that an institution can provide at a very reasonable rate. And it's iterative. They don't have to just do it once like a professional, and it's a pretty large chunk of their budget, right? It may cost from a few hundred to tens of thousands if it's 10,000 or more if it's a scientific edit. Whereas digital, they can, every pass, every time they add something, they can run it through the digital editing tool or the digital translation and editing tool. So it's a very affordable solution as well. It's a great question, thank you.
Any other questions before we ask y'all one? Okay, so what role, if y'all don't mind somebody sharing, what role do y'all see librarians play in or supporting the researchers with their professional development? Well, what role are you all having to play? Anyone
Mostly on the publishing side,
on the publishing
because our
side?
folks, our basic science, do NIH biosketch writing, all that kind of stuff, and looking for the right kind of journal and
Okay,
systematic review support, writing search methodology,
Okay.
scoping reviews, registering search protocols, all that.
Yeah. so definitely on the whole getting published and the whole path to publish.
But we do have a postdoc who's involved in ethics, author ethics
Yeah.
regarding citations and all that,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah,
citation sessions with them, teaching their classes in terms of the research component, for example,
teaching.
conferences.
Okay.
So we do their lectures for them in that regard.
lectures.
Yes. We also do creditor journal checks for them. And then we also have sessions for them on the commercialization part of that in terms of introducing them to the reproduction rights organization, so they know how they can benefit financially
Okay,
in terms of the royalties and so on.
so it's a lot of training from you all on some of these things, really, I guess. It's a lot of
Data
things.
management plans,
Yeah.
that's big in the
Yeah.
US.
Yeah, yeah,
Impact analysis, research and impact analysis, we have a whole department for that.
yeah. Great.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, always.
And I don't, I'm super pro librarian, I don't want anyone to think I'm not. I also have a PhD, and I work at the Claremont colleges where we hire a lot of new librarians who don't write theses and don't write dissertations. And I wonder sometimes what role should they play in supporting researchers? Our researchers expect them to know everything as if they were a researcher because of our reputation. And they come and they feel, many of them feel very, is unconfident a word? They feel like imposters because they don't know these processes. And so I spend, as the head of Skullcom and Open Publishing, I spend a lot of time training them how to be researchers and how to think like researchers and telling them, you're a librarian, and what you need to do is point them to resources that
Yes.
you're creating. But I feel like if they had these resources and could learn from them,
Yeah.
that might make them feel more confident. But they just don't have time because they're collection developing, they're doing, it seems to me like
Yes.
we're piling all of these things, like you're not only a librarian, now you're a researcher, you're a faculty, you're a teacher, so I often think about like, what is the role of the librarian in supporting researchers doing their professional development, their research, all of their activities.
There is no generic librarian. We don't let our newbies loose. I mean, we have
Oh,
people with
of course.
bioinformatics degrees
course.
and others, so.
Yeah.
I think-
New is new maybe to the profession, but they might have come with another degree.
So-
Maybe not a PhD.
So not at our institution,
Okay.
they're not required, we're staff, so we're not required, and in some cases, we're even loosening up and saying you don't have to have a library degree,
Yeah.
you could have an equivalent degree, whatever
Yeah.
that might be, and I
Okay.
think that's a trend in our field.
That's
So-
part of the problem,
Yeah.
the definition
It
of
is
what
a
a
challenge.
librarian is.
I-
It is a
This
challenge.
is actually the question we have today, like,
Yeah.
Yes.
if it doesn't move on from providing resources such as books and journals for meta-analysis and all this stuff to a whole different role where there's other things involved like training for researchers or whatever. And this is, I don't know if anybody else wants to share.
Well, I wanted to say something on that really fast. I think that also one of the things that we've been discussing with a lot of the librarians, because what we heard back was, we have all these tools, or these possible tools that we can give these folks. I don't have time to get them out there, to learn them, and it's just not, I just don't have time, right? And so that is something that like at Overleaf we do that for them, you know what I mean? And I think that's important to ask the various vendors, when you do bring on these tools, how can you help me, get this out, and ship this to everybody and train everybody, and do you have that support? Because it is definitely something that we hear all the time, and it's really important, and that's a big part of what we tell them. It's not just, the product, of course, is amazing, and it's, Overleaf, look, Overleaf's amazing. But, and we've got the data on like the use and stuff like that, but it's more than just that, because if they can't get it out there easily, what's the point? Yeah.
One thing I didn't hear you mention is sort of the administrative side of it, because at my institution, we help authors with their copyright agreements and their invoices and all the paperwork that happens after you're accepted. And that can be really difficult and a strain on authors as well, because at most institutions, a lot of that administrative support has been cut. And then now when we're switching to read and publish and more like APCs being paid at some institutions, that's coming to the library as well.
Yeah.
So even more time.
Even more, yeah. No, it's a really good point. Yeah, the administrative part is a whole nother level, that goes after some of the stuff that we've been talking about for sure. And how is anybody else dealing with that? How do you deal with the administrative? Is there any good way to be able to deal with some of that burden?
We might be unique in that.
Yeah.
That's put on the library at my institution.
No? Not unique?
Not you.
Not unique.
So maybe I don't know if my institution's unique, but I work for 7 institutions, all in the same geographic location. One's out each door of the library. But yeah, the things just keep coming to the library. The only unique thing I think we do is I have this pool of subject librarians, and I've set it up so that they have this kind of basic knowledge. And then after that, they come to deep knowledge experts. So we have a head of data science, we have a head of Skullcom, we have the head of collections management. So once they reach a certain level of they know the basics, then they can reach out and partner with us, and we sort of like do the extra. But yeah, I approve all the APCs for the read and publish. I do all the IR and the author rights permissions, and we just kind of work as a team, and it's the best we can do for now. But I find, I guess, I'm not upset. I love my job. I'm super inspired by this conference. I'm going back and revising things. But I think, I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome around, like how can we help researchers? We sometimes don't feel like partners in this process.
Yeah.
And I think if we could learn a bit more and have access to some of these tools, it would give us the confidence to kind of say, yeah, I know how to do that. I know how to help you do this part, and or at least I think we always say, I worked at Apple through my library master's degree, and I would always say, I don't know, but let's find out together, and we'll point you to this place, right?
Yeah.
So that's our kind of go-to, like, we don't know, but there's a tool for that, so we point people to those tools, and that's the best we can do sometimes.
I think one of the problems at my institution is that the faculty most times do not trust the librarians to
She
help
said the
support
faculty
and
doesn't
lead
trust the
them because
librarians.
you don't have you cannot speak in their own language as a scientist. And so it's important to target certain faculties where they're specialist faculty, like STEM.
Yes.
So you get a STEM librarian who's a
Yes.
subject specialist.
Yes.
And for example, I'm a law librarian, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not a practicing lawyer. So they trust the conversations I have with them, the projects that I work with them on. I
Yeah.
can communicate with them in the language of the law, the Commonwealth jurisprudence, and so they trust what I have to say. So everything they say, you have to speak with the law librarian about
Got it.
that project.
Yes, subject
So there's
specific.
this collaboration, ongoing collaboration between us.
Nice. That's great. Yeah.
So where I am, my biggest challenge, I feel like, is connecting with the researchers. They don't have time to talk to me. You know, what you were saying, the time court thing. So if I have tools that, with 15 minutes, I could show them how to do a better search, but everybody's a searcher. They've got Google, they've got ResearchGate, they've got everything is on the internet, right? And trying to figure out what the language is that is going to connect them to a tool that would make it easier for them, that would give them better analytics. We do a publishing summit every year to bring researchers in and kind of walk them through pieces of the publishing process and where the research cycle comes in and how peer review can help their career and things like that. But all of the stuff, the administrivia, the handling the copyrights, all of that comes out of our group. We have to send accepted manuscripts to Office of Science, so we have to handle that and getting those back from authors, the collaborations, the joint appointees. It just keeps the collaboration thing is like, oh my gosh.
I
That they're all over the globe, and the point yesterday in one of the sessions of well, who pays for the APC, from which institution gets credit, how are they listing all of their joint appointee institutions so that all of the institutions get to count that towards their impact, and then promoting and stuff. So the bite-sized thing is really good. We've been trying to play with, do we want to do little mini videos to post, but that's time on our side, and then you've got to post them, and then you've got to drive people to them, and so
This is where we,
Yeah.
we have had nature master classes at our institution.
And actually, it's something that we all three have been working on is a bundle, like a path to publish bundle where we're working together because we all kind of have a piece in that. So I don't know if that's something that's of interest, but it's just a way for, you got the training, you got the writing, you got the language editing, and then the research square preprint servers, and we were like, what, this is a good fit. So that's something that we've been working on, because we know that it's easier if you just got kind of the whole thing in one. It just makes it a little bit easier to maybe.
One-stop shop.
Any other questions? Those are some good ones. How are we on time? Bang on. All right, well, thank you all so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We hope it was useful for you.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much for your time.
How you-